Good evening. Welcome to the Government News Brief. This evening, the land titling program's old deficiencies raised in Parliament, hundreds of jobs available at Guy Suko's Iflot estate, and private operators are being trained to better function in the forestry sector. Thanks for staying with us. The trickery of the previous administration's land titling program was again brought to the fore as the government and the opposition members of Parliament today clashed in the House. Sanika Thorne reports.
The two sides differ over a motion brought to the National Assembly by the opposition to revoke the Commission of Inquiry on Indigenous and Ancestral Lands. Minister within the Ministry of Communities, Don Hastings-Williams, speaking against the motion, recalled how the previous administration land titling program handed over several fake land titles to indigenous communities and revoked them within hours. Minister Hastings-Williams recalled how the previous administration deviously handed over indigenous lands to miners.
The APNU-AFC coalition government recognizes that the issue of lands is far from settled, and that is why we decided to take a decision to ensure that our people can commute freely this beautiful land of many waters, Guyana, without worrying about the future. There is enough land to satisfy the needs of the Guyanese people and generations to come. But today, land is still a source of pain and controversy, which, if not settled, will divide us more, hindering our development and growth as a nation.
Minister Hastings-Williams pointed out that the PPPC had 23 years to fully address the issues of indigenous lands and failed, noting that the government within 2 years is working towards bringing the issue to a successful close.
This land titling issue has gone from the sublime and commendable to barefacedness and insanity. How is it possible that the PPPC, the same party that was in power, as I said, when Amerindian land titling was granted and taken back from some of the communities, why was it taken back? Because there were some problems. They later realized that the same land that they were about to give to my Amerindian brothers and sisters were also granted to the miners. And that is where the confusion came. The miners were Guyanese, the Amerindians were Guyanese too. And that is so because I think in his wisdom, the setting up of the COI is not to take away Amerindian lands, but is to resolve the same very problems that we found that was happening under the past administration.
The motion being moved by the opposition in the House seeks to block the president's move to set up a 6-man commission of inquiry to examine and make recommendations to resolve issues surrounding Amerindian and African land in Guyana. Sanika Thorne for the Government News Brief.
Hundreds of jobs are available at the west side as over 400 persons can be employed at Guy Suko's Iflot estate. Delicia Haynes visited and filed this report.
406 jobs in various capacities are available through the Iflot Estate's improvement program. Guy Suko's Chief Industrial Relations Officer Deodat Suku says that any member of the public can apply, including former Wales estate workers.
We had identified all the harvesters and the support hands for the cane harvesters to be offered opportunity to work at Iflot. To date, 51 persons have turned out to work at this area, and we have in train a consultation plan to go within the community, an outreach program to encourage those additional persons to turn out to work.
Suku explains that accepting former Wales workers will not burden the Iflot estate. He says the improvement program will continually make provisions for more workers over time.
The improvement of the estate as it is, because there is serious concern over the poor performance of this estate for them to come forward. As Mr. Manna put out earlier, his plan should be one of the plans that encourages those employees to turn out.
The Ivlot Estate Improvement Project aims to double its production by 2020. Currently, the production target for 2017 stands at 20,178 tons. For the Government News Brief, Delicia Haynes.
Thank you, Delicia. Private forestry operators are benefiting from a project that will enable them to be more efficient and follow the laws of the forestry sector. I was at the launch of this project today at Cara Lodge, and here are the details. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, in collaboration with the European Union Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade, EUFLET, launched its Building Awareness and Capacity of Private Sector Operators program today. Project Coordinator Mona Bino says its aim is to strengthen forest governance to achieve sustainable forest management.
It's looking at increasing the knowledge of the private sector operators in the sector, especially in terms of the technical contents of the annexes of the VPA and what it means for their operations.
Bino explains that many local operators do not fully understand the annexes and need to be educated. FAO representative to Guyana Ruben Robertson explains that it is necessary to engage the private sector and civil society to achieve sustainable development.
As the custodian for these funds, see it necessary and a fundamental to be engaging the building capacity among these small loggers and these small organizations and agencies together with the private sector, so that they can work with government to be able to achieve what we refer to as sustainable development.
FAO is the custodian of the funding for the project, which is valued at US $108,000 and has a duration of 15 months. Guyana is in the process of finalizing negotiations on the EUFLET Voluntary Partnership Agreement, which seeks to certify Guyana's forest products for export to the EU. Up next, Paul McAdam tells us how the Ministry of Public Works is bumping up its role and doing its part to increase road safety.
There are now sleeping policemen or speed bumps on dozens of roads rehabilitated by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Minister David Patterson says that he'd hoped that with better roads, motorists would take their time and exercise due caution. This, he notes, was not to be.
They have not. They have actually done the opposite. So it's the government's responsibility to try and to mitigate against that. So we've installed some speed bumps in certain key locations, and it is hoped to ensure that drivers do actually pause before they cross the street.
There are many complaints about the lack of speed bump or sleeping policemen uniformity. However, the minister intends to ensure that they are standardized.
We have issued a guideline and we have revised it, and we will be going to address the speed bumps now, and they're going to be flatter and wider, right? Because the idea is just simply to cause you to slow down, right? So they'll be flatter, they'll be no more than 2 inches, I think, or less. But you will feel a notable difference, and wider. So you will automatically slow down, and that's the way we're going. It was discussed with my team about, a week or two ago. Immediately after this Mike and Durban Street accident, we convened a meeting with the traffic bodies.
He adds that as subject minister, he has a dual role with regards to roads.
I'm doing roads, so I would like roads to get people faster and better and quicker. But I also have the responsibility, to ensure that the pedestrians, who are our most vulnerable group, the young and the elderly, particularly categories of pedestrians, I also have the responsibility to protect them. So it's a clash of between what you want and your responsibility, and that's what's happening now.
Paul McAdam for the Government News Brief.
Delon Sanko now joins us with good news. The Central Housing and Planning Authority is heightening efforts to ensure that Guyanese get value for their money.
The Central Housing and Planning Authority, CHNPA, within the Ministry of Communities, held a workshop for the clerks of work at the department's boardroom today. Chief Executive Officer CHMPA Leland Saul says the training is set to train staff on the proper standard for the supervision of projects.
As you're aware, we have several projects outside there in terms of infrastructure development in our schemes. And quality control is one of our major concerns. So the session basically, as I said before, it is designed to provide our clerk of works with the necessary knowledge so they can effectively supervise our projects.
Omar Narain, Director of Projects Acting, says that the training is to ensure that the Guyanese public gets their money's worth.
These works are worth millions of dollars, and we want to give the Guyanese people value for money. We don't want to do shoddy work. We don't want them to approve shoddy work. We want our work to be in accordance with the standard. If you have noticed in the press lately, the Bureau of Standard is pressing ahead with their building codes. And in terms of roads, the clerk of works, they have to know how to interpret the standard and to reject shoddy work by the contractor.
The aim of the training is to improve the quality of supervision and competency level of the clerks of work who supervise CH&PA projects to ensure that the agency reach maximum value for its money. The training will be facilitated for senior level ground staff, which will include the engineers and project manager. Delon Sanko for the Government News Brief.
Thank you, Delon. Expeditious investigations will be launched into the detention of Haitian nationals who arrived in Guyana in May.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Carl Greenitz, says Cabinet wants the investigations into the detention of Haitian nationals to be expedited and closed. The Haitians arrived in Guyana in May 2017.
We need to move expeditiously to decide one way or the other whether there is actually evidence, and to try and ensure that children and women who may be in that group in particular are not put in any unacceptable circumstances.
A number of Haitians were placed into protective custody after police suspected they were victims of human trafficking. Minister Greenitz says he charged his fellow ministers of citizenship and public security to familiarize themselves with the Guyana international obligations on the treatment of migrants.
They have been instructed by Cabinet to treat expeditiously with the matters before them and to go and have a look at the legislation and ensure that if the legislation needs to be modified or updated, it is modified and updated.
Minister Greenidge explains that Guyana's legislation does not cater for significant migrant flows. He, however, pointed out that the Guyana police force was acting consistent with the legislation, which may not be appropriate for large migrant flows, including refugees. Sinika Thorne for the Government News Brief.
Thanks for watching. Visit gina.gov.gy for more news and information 24/7. We're also on Facebook and YouTube, and the links are on the screen. Do remember to join us on Monday. Have a great weekend.